from last week, and if there's a motion to adopt those, we'll entertain that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Item number 1. Tuscaloosa City Schools Athletic Excellence Fund. Is Ms. Standard, did you hear
I have
from the
not
school
gotten a
board?
message back, no, sir.
I thought they were coming today.
I thought they were
talked to
too.
the board members.
I went by there this morning. Okay, is there a motion to table to next week?
So moved. Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item is tabled to next week. Item number 2, Habitat for Humanity for Operation Transformation. Ms. Potts. Hey, how are you?
I had previously emailed these,
Mm-hmm.
but wanted to actually bring this. And I wanted to start by saying that I apologize. We have never applied for infrastructure funds before. Even when we built the big development on Juanita Drive, all of those homes already had infrastructure. And so this is a new process for me. And I apologize that I didn't necessarily go through the proper procedures, but now I know what they are. And so.
Take the mic.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's all
I'm
yours.
sorry.
And no apology necessary. We appreciate what y'all do.
Thank you very much. So you will notice, if you turn to the second page, you'll see this development, which is the 26-unit development. It may turn into 25 with drainage, with putting in some drainage that the city engineers are requiring. But it's 25 or 26 lots, and this is the development that y'all approved. Planning and zoning approved it, and then I think it was back in July that the city council approved. These lots do not have infrastructure, and according to TTL, and you can see the detailed list of everything that's needed here, it's going to cost about $1.4 million to put infrastructure in these lots so that we can build these homes. What I would like for y'all to do is, I think there's $500,000 in the budget. We're also asking the county for $500,000, and then Habitat will put up $500,000. And you would say, oh, well, there's only, it's 1.4 million, where's the other 100,000 coming from? We discovered that some of the lots on on Elm and Ash Streets that we believed had infrastructure do not in fact have infrastructure. So we're having to spend an extra $100,000 for infill lots that we thought had sewer that don't have sewer. And so those actually should come before, those should be approved. I think all of the things that the Planning and Zoning, the council has needed to approve have already been approved. So we are respectfully requesting $500,000 so that we can build these 25 or 6 homes, plus the other 14 that we're building. And we believe that this will significantly improve the neighborhood. When you think about the other places that we've built, the housing values have increased. We don't want to gentrify the neighborhood, but we want to, usually when you build roofs, when you have more roofs, then you have more businesses. And we want to move into this area in a big way so that hopefully we'll have more economic development and growth in this. We hope to stabilize the neighborhood with a lot of homeowners. If you look at statistics from across the country, when home ownership moves in, it stabilizes the neighborhood. Typically crime decreases, and that's what we want to be a part of. These lots are, just to give you get your bearings, they are located pretty much right behind Maud Watley. And then the other lots that we have are located all basically in that same little, quarter-mile area. The kids from TCTA, the electrical and the construction students walk across the street to work on our homes now. Last week, Wednesday through Friday, I was in Greeley, Colorado, looking at the Greeley, Colorado habitat with 2 of my habitat colleagues from here, 5 representatives from the Tuscaloosa City Schools, developer Brock Porter, and Donnie Jones from the Chamber of Commerce to look at 2 things. Number one, the Greeley habitat does the job training program that we do, but they do it with their alternative school. And so they took those kids that take at least 2 construction classes in the alternative school from having an average GPA of 0.8 to a 100% graduation rate. And they, in 7 years, this is the year 7, they have had more than 600 kids go through that program. And these are the most at-risk kids in that school system. Also, they are doing a 176-unit mixed income development in partnership with private developers. And so we wanted to see what that would look like so that maybe we could build more affordable housing more quickly. So I'm happy to entertain any questions.
And I have 1 million of them. But I want to open the conversation with this because I think my questions really are mostly project related, as opposed to finance related. And the way I think the process will work better is if those a place for those kind of questions and answers and exchange were put on the projects committee.
Okay.
And I say that because typically, to my mind, the sequence would be we as a council or committee will look at a project, go, okay, the project's worthy, it is something we do. Now, where does it fit in with the priorities? Where does it go in the queue? And so, for example, you've got one on First Avenue that will take the projects, and we'll do that part of it, okay? We'll evaluate it as a project, and then see where it fits in the queue of things to be done, and then bring it to finance to find the money for it. Is that, any questions or comments from any of the other committee members?
I agree. That's how the process has always been done and works. Because if a project, for example, I can't imagine being turned down at all. But if it is, then you wasted your time being in finance. So, if a project's not voted worthy through a projects committee. So it's just the way it works.
Well, I'll just say that, like I said, this is the first time we've asked for infrastructure. This is a different kind of
Is
animal
that because
for us.
that was just when you're talking about there's no, the water, sewer, everything?
It's just an open field.
Gotcha.
You
I
might as
thought
well
it
be
was,
in the
but I
middle
wasn't
of nowhere.
positive about all of it, but all of it is, huh?
Well, these 26 lots are, and then there were another 15 or so that we thought all would have infrastructure, and about half of them don't. They don't have sewer connections, so,
Because
Yeah.
it'll happen, but we need to line them up.
Right.
Mr. Crowe, as the project's chairman, would you be open to that coming
Absolutely. Do it next week.
next week?
Do it next week.
So, Lily, y'all put that on the agenda for next week?
Yes. Ellen, will there be an update of like what the county, can you work on that? Like, if the county's committed to doing part of this, because if any of that funding doesn't happen with our funding, then what will you have to do?
we have options.
Okay.
I mean,
If that doesn't
yeah,
happen?
if that doesn't happen, we've got some options. I don't like those options, but,
Oh, yeah.
what I hope is that we can do city 500, county 500, habitat 500, and then we're equal partners, basically, in this. And, the county, we benefit the county because the program at TCTA is the only electrical program for high schoolers in Tuscaloosa County. So Tuscaloosa City School kids go there, Tuscaloosa County schools go there. They will wire at least one house this semester, maybe 2, for us, and have wired 2 or 3 others already. So they're getting some great hands-on experience.
I'm glad you're making that point because like the city, I mean, that's another reason why the county should be participating for sure, because their kids, even though it's located in.
It's a city school, I get it,
It's
yeah,
a city, but it may as well be a city-county school too.
right. And we are hoping to expand this program to their, their construction trade programs, their carpentry programs, their, things like that. We'd like to expand that. I know that they're gonna open something at Hillcrest, and that would be perfect, because it's not that far, up from Hillcrest.
Well, thank you for coming in. Thank you for what y'all do. Randy, do we need to make a motion to table till it goes to projects? Is that how it would work?
You can either, I wouldn't table it, I would make a motion to move, to hear the item for.
To move it to projects, and then they can
projects.
recommend it to finance? Okay.
Chairperson.
Second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the procedure, but, so can we double this up next week on projects and finance?
I don't have a problem with it.
So,
So
we're moving it to
We're
project.
moving it to projects.
Motion to that.
And I
You okay
second
with
it.
that? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That's done. Thank you, Ellen, for
Thank
coming
you
in.
very
For the
much.
record, Mr. Tyner voted illegally
As,
again.
as
Voted
he's,
illegally
as
again.
he's wont to do.
He pulled one of
Tom, are there
my
sanctions
early
for
ones. I was voting on everybody. Motion.
That's so funny. Because you weren't the only one, buddy.
I had to point that out.
All right. Item number 3.
You remember that was voting on everybody.
Community and Neighborhood Services Department budget, Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for this time. I have taken the time to really look at the Community and Neighborhood Services budget, and I became very concerned about wanting to support this department and the work that they do for our city and for our community. And therefore, I am requesting that the $251,500 in salary reimbursements be applied to the CNS budget to reduce salaries on, which is on page 69 of the budget book. Right.
I'm sorry, I thought
I've got mine up there, but we'll.
And,
mine's at the office.
okay,
I thought it was here.
and that it be,
Budget, sorry, Matthew.
okay, that it be reallocated from the general fund contingency for the following program and personnel initiatives. In addition to that, I'm requesting that $50,805 of additional funding not budgeted in 2023 be applied as detailed below. And that is as follows. We recognize that we have a lot of influx of homelessness within our district, in our city. And this is a program that has been funded previously, that is lacking $25,000 to complete the $100,000 ask that they have $75,000, but need $25,000 to complete the task, which will support the program efforts, including the ability to provide showers and assistance in washing and drying clothes for persons within the city of Tuscaloosa. The second thing is community service programs, funding to provide hot meals to senior citizens through the Meals on Wheels. There are a lot of people that benefit from that. I know in my district, when you have a lot of elderly persons who can't get out, these persons are given hot meals. And I've spoken to both of these entities concerning how they can prove to us that this is working. The third one is the Neighborhood Revitalization Program, which is $50,000. And I want to reinstate that program because it was delayed as a result of COVID-19. And what that program does is that it's the Let's Paint and Renovate for senior citizens who cannot or who do not qualify for different agency fundings. And I think that our city has been able to do and help persons with this. Also, the Hope Initiative Jobs Program that was started in 2009, the mayor saw that there was such an increase in youthful crime, saw that our children were dying at the hands of guns, and this came as an initiative of Project Unity, which the areas that were listed were Rosedale, Forster Gardens, Downing Place, Creekwood Village, John England Manor, Hay Court, Beach Street, East Tuscaloosa, including Alberta, University Manor, and low and moderate income areas within the city limits. And this program has been shifted from one particular agency to the other. And I believe that to bring continuity to context of what we do as a city, if we could look at one particular program to house this program at least 3 years, and then be able to get an assessment, an accurate assessment of number one, who we've helped, number two, what is the income level of the persons that we're helping, number three, what is the diversity? I heard that diversification was an issue that people want to know. We don't want to just see one particular ethnicity in the HOPE initiative. We want to see that it's for all children. It's for all of our kids, whether you're black, whether you're white. And so how do we do that? What if we would expand from the places that the mayor put in the HOPE initiative, then we would need to look at what new neighborhoods or what new areas do we need to quantify in order to do that. And I believe by putting an extra $100,000 in there, it moves the pay scale from $8 an hour to coming up with a livable wage. Because you can go to McDonald's and make $15 or $14.25. And so if we talk about we want to get these kids off the street, but if they can, I'm gonna say it in my way, if they can slang dope and make way more money, do you think I will come to a job program for $8? We want to help our community. I believe that you all do. And so with that, I'm asking for that. That's a total of $200,000. In personnel requesting, I spoke to Mr. Howell concerning his request as it relates to personnel, and the city writes a lot of grants, and those grants are predominantly off of districts 1, 2, 5, and 7 because of income-based ages and different other demographics. And so therefore, as the city writes these grants, a new position, and I spoke to LaShonda about this, a grant compliance coordinator request of $79,985. I believe that, and then the deputy director increased to a grade 40, CNS manager finance increased to a grade 29, grants manager increased to grade 29, and community development program manager increased to a grade 26, and lead program manager increased to a 26. And these are the annual upgrades that they will cost, which will come to with the grants compliance coordinator new position, which and the other funds that are listed come to $100,705. And so the sum of what I'm asking to be reallocated is $300,705. And the HUD salary reimbursements, as included as a reduction of the salary in CNS, is $251,500. The HUD salary reimbursement additional funding not included in the budget is the $50,805, which gives a remaining balance of $1,600. And I'm asking for this to not only be considered, but that it be a proposal to be enacted upon.
So the funding request, and I asked this, I wish LaShonda was here. I'm working on something, no secret, crew workers right now for ESD, and I was hoping to get an answer today. And then I got a response, from Carly's team, as I should. And where is, I got a number, but where is the funding gonna come from? And so that's always, In other words, if we increase these crew workers, like I hope that we'll be able to, you gotta come up with a funding source. That'll be a permanent funding source because it's not a one-time deal.
Yes, sir.
So what would the funding source be for these personnel requests?
These personnel funding requests will come from general fund. General fund.
And so just, I just want to do a quick, we have not vetted this one, so I can't really necessarily speak all the way through, but I can tell you that the HUD salary reimbursements, the 251,500 that are already budgeted, those cannot be used as a funding source because they're already included in the overall budget. So and the additional HUD salary reimbursements that are not included in the budget, the 50,805, there's more than enough already within the CNS budget to be able to add that in, to use that, without adding the additional costs. So if it were me, I would say that the entire amount, the 307.05, would need to come from contingency or from defunding something else that's already been funded. So I think those are your two options for a funding source there.
So, a couple of questions, and then also, I guess you've got
LaPerry.
Perry in here, if you want to help me. But just at first blush, it seems to me like there's multiple pieces wrapped up in this.
It is.
One is the 251 that CNS provides as reimbursements to other places in the
That go to
staff,
the general
right?
fund.
Right.
Right.
The other is essentially, these pieces here are agency fundings, right?
Right.
And
So
is that to
So-
come out or through CNS based on,
Well, since-
are these one and the same, or?
And since the 251 was going back to general fund contingent, back to the general fund, why not allow them to utilize those 200,000 of those funds and reallocate those to these 4 different agencies?
Well,
To do that, though, you.
We
Okay.
gotta come up with 251 someplace
Right.
else to make up for what's not being reimbursed.
That's budgeted in cost reimbursement in your budget, along with multitude of different cost reimbursements that are in your budget that serve as revenues.
But Walt, that amount of money is a credit against your true personnel cost. It's
Yes.
251,000 of current staff, right?
As I look at,
Right?
the 2023, we have $892,033 budgeted salary and benefits. We're budgeting the 251,500 as cost reimbursed from those federal grants that I assume we're assuming that's applied back to that overall $892,000.
You are correct.
So, and then the other question would be the personnel funding down here, Ms. Wilson, that would strike me as something that would go to admin
Right.
and personnel rather than finance first, right?
Right.
And
Of
none
course.
of that's currently in the budget. This is all additional funding,
Right.
correct?
So did you want to bring Perry up?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Microphone.
And I'm
Sorry?
emailing y'all a snapshot from the budget book, just
Okay.
in case you don't have it.
Was there a question? I'm sorry.
I thought, did you want LaPerry to address this?
Will you address for us the grants compliance coordinator and the need of the personnel request upgrades?
The grant compliance coordinator, we have asked for that in the past, simply being because all the grants we get, as everyone knows, even with DR, we have a compliance portion. With any grant, there's always 3 parts. You have financial, programmatic, and compliance. With each grant we're over, it could be anywhere from 10 to 15 years of compliance. Like, we're still dealing with grants right now from 1990. I'll say that loosely, so HUD won't call, but we're still dealing with grants right now that were way back in the past. And so what we need this position for is somebody to know that we're in compliance when HUD actually comes to do an audit or monitoring in that aspect. Because again, you have the financial side and the programmatic side, so we need to have somebody in line to do that. The internal positions are, over time, we have had people that are cross-training in other areas, like we've got new grants, the lead grant, we actually have a grant, should get a grant agreement sometime this week for the mayor to execute, in the amount of 1.2 million, and that's for our fiscal year 22 grant. And we have a $1.7 million grant that we have actually not touched yet.
So you said 1.6 million and 1.7 million?
And the only new position will be the grant compliance coordinator, and the other ones would just be increased
That
rate.
is,
But even the
Councilman Wilson.
upgrades would go to personnel and admin.
Council Wilson met
Right.
with LaShondra on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I will say the agency funding, that is not coming out of my budget.
Right.
I just want to go on the record for that. Say that.
What was that, took care of
The agency funding is not coming out of my budget at all.
You said it will.
All right,
It is
because
not.
actually I had that question.
No, it's not.
So this,
I'll repeat it again.
so what's being proposed that would come back
Oh,
to
People are saying they
you?
can't hear you.
Go to the microphone up there. So what's being proposed that would flow back to CNS, again, with some adjustments, that's not what would be being used
No.
here, that's separate.
Now, I will say TES is, we do fund them on the street outreach, TES, Temporary Emergency Service. We do, that is the offset to what our program or the grant cannot cover. That's what, the Executive Director, Dr. Karen Thompson, had presented to you all before.
So that is already funded.
No, it's not completely funded. It's only, it's a $25,000.
She's funded through one of our grants, but the grant will not cover what she
It wouldn't cover
requested.
all of the expenses.
Okay, so what she's requesting still needs to be funded.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so are there, any questions from the committee members or from the other?
Yeah, I just wanna ask a period, so even though Matthew spoke with LaShonda about this new position for us grant compliance coordinator, is this a position you definitely need though?
Essentially, what I presented was two positions, and
Right.
that was a community service coordinator, because that person is the actual person. When you all have citizens who need help, that will be that person who's going out and seeking help for that person.
Yeah.
The grant compliance coordinator is always an important position to have in place when you're dealing with HUD funding. Yeah.
I have a question, Perry,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. And Ellen's here too, she can answer this maybe. The neighborhood revitalization program, which I love, it used to be called emergency repairs.
It's still,
Basically.
we fund her for,
Okay, so that's
this
what-
program was out of neighborhood revitalization, out of our line item from last year. This is geared toward the elderly who do not fall within the income limit when she's doing rehab.
Okay, say that, because I
It's
just
for
want to
the,
make sure
it's
what's the
for
difference.
the elderly, 65 and older, seasoned and experienced persons. Who do not otherwise qualify, because all the funding that we provide to Ellen, we have to fall within the income limits that are provided by HUD. Yeah. And right now, that work is being done in District 1, 2, and 7.
7.
So-
The Neighborhood Revitalization Fund was set up during Ms. McKinstry's time. It was geared towards Downing Place. And the city eventually ended up partnering with Downing Place on much more than, I think it was around $300,000. And it's made a dramatic difference
Right.
in Downing Place. But we soon realized that putting a $50,000 would never be enough. Because we learned from the Downing Place experiment, it's gonna be, to make the type of change, you're gonna need to put more money. Therefore, we would rather recommend it through the RFFI like we did with Operation Transformation, which was the $500,000 recommendation.
Because I was a little confused.
She still
because-
gets her fund.
So when somebody needs that emergency assistance,
Ms. Ellen Potts, the Executive
Okay.
Director of Habitat for Humanity.
okay, because the way I read it here, they're your department.
Well, that is it's a total different program. I presented.
Now, that's the
It's a
answer I was
total
looking
different program. That program is called Let's Paint and Let's Renovate. I presented it in Community Development Committee meetings sometime last year, as a pilot program for, again, the elderly who,
So when it
You're
says.
not hurting my feelings, John.
The seasoned
I've been
experience-
called a lot
The
worse than
season
that.
of experience.
You and me
Persons
both.
who could, who not
You ain't
otherwise qualify
60, you
for the
ain't
program.
55. Man.
So
I
reinstate,
am.
so reinstate is the, let's paint thing again? So why didn't you just say?
Oh,
I know, Mr. Wilson, why didn't you just say that?
I'm gonna say, it. Let's reinstate the lead and paint, let's paint and renovate.
So we receive $100,000 in CDBG funds every year to do repairs. Used to, we could do, say, 10 good-sized repairs with that. Now it's more like 6, 7, just because, you know, our building materials costs, our lumber costs, all those things have basically doubled in some cases. And so the money doesn't go as far as we would like. We are doing at least 100 roofs this year, and many people can be helped with that funding. And so we're trying to help as many people as possible with the grant funding we're given from various sources. And do help us our roofing program application process open today. So they go to habitattuscaloosa.org and click on need a new roof, and so that process is open today.
This
I
is
bet it's
just
already
for
full.
clarity to make certain that I'm clear too, and both of you make sure I understand completely as well. The 50,000 would be added to what we're doing today. And the lead paint program, don't we have a grant right now that Chip Cates is administering for
Yes.
the replacement of lead paint
Correct,
program?
she's the manager of that.
So we're doing those things today. I assume the 50,000 would be to layer on top of what
Yes,
is
sir.
already existing.
Mhm.
But through but
But so-
through
so is it
community
through-
services.
No,
So is it through
that's not.
CNS or is it through
That's
Habitat?
through.
That's what
See, that's what I was.
I'm confused.
So
Go back.
Ellen will manage the 50,000?
No.
No? Okay.
Neighborhood revitalization is in community and neighborhood services.
The city
It's a line out. It's the Let's Paint and Let's Renovate program. The people qualify for, otherwise do not qualify for the rehab program that
Okay.
we fund her out of community development block grant.
Okay.
She is the manager also of the lead paint, the lead grant in the amount of 2.3 million, I think that's the amount. But it's the grant amount was for 2.9 million. And so in this, with any grant, there's always an income limit that we have to abide by with HUD. The Let's Paint is for the people who otherwise do not qualify.
They don't qualify, basically.
So we're trying to add 50 to that, to the list
Yes.
paper? Okay, okay. And just a quick question, Ellen, what do we have to do to qualify for the repairs from your program? Not the full bill, but what is the qualifications? Or you can just give me that later, you ain't got to.
Okay, I'm happy to say, we serve people who are homeowners, their name is on the deed, they live in the city of Tuscaloosa, and their income level is 80th percentile and below.
Okay.
And that's the basic qualifications, there are others, but those are the basic.
Okay.
And so LaPierre, the Let's Paint is for those persons who do not fall within those guidelines.
And there are 65 on parole. Seasoned, experienced person.
Seasoned, if I was in church, I would say seasoned saints.
All right.
Matthew, I
Yes.
mean, all these are worthy things for us to consider. I know when Dr. Jackson was here and we were talking about dealing with the homeless, and we're talking about Meals on Wheels for senior citizens, I think those are great things. But can we get a little more information from Cynthia and from Karen on if we're gonna provide this money to community services, how many people are gonna be impacted by it? Who are they? I mean, how do they determine that? I don't remember, we had a really rushed committee meeting when they were here. I mean, it would be nice to know I know they asked for more money, but if we did that, what is the money specifically gonna go to? And the same thing when it came to the homeless stuff, because,
So why don't we invite them back next week
I mean.
to present to
this-
us?
I'm fine.
Mr. Chairman?
I'm fine with that.
But-
And
but-
I assume this is falling under the category of, this part we're talking about,
Yes, sir.
would be where's Ms. Stant, a proposed revision to agency funding, is that correct?
These would be a proposed revision just to the general fund budget.
I would,
Is that also
Yeah.
include the personnel funding as well?
Yes, sir. The
That's
personnel
doable.
funding would also be included in a general fund budget revision.
Carly,
Mr. Chairman, I would also, if I could add one question, but to what, finish my comment though, Mr. Chairman, was, Carly, I would love to see what options y'all see of a way to try to fund part of this, or how do we approach, maybe door number 1, 2, or 3, or say, these are some things that make sense, and we have that discussion if that's acceptable to y'all. I mean, on whether this is good or bad or what.
So, I mean, and I guess my comments previously are really where we're gonna land, is that contingency will be the only funding option in the general fund left over unless you want to defund another priority. So total contingency currently, we just started the year, we just rolled it forward, we have not done any budget revisions. So the current contingency balance is $607,000. Now, like my comments before, I do not think that you can take the $251,000 and put it towards paying for this. So if you were to take $249,900 and apply it to that $607,000 contingency balance, you would be left with a contingency balance of $358,000 for the rest of the year. I can tell you that we used that and more in 2022, just by things that came up here and there. I will say also that in my financial opinion, for the $50,800 of additional HUD salary reimbursements, that's not, we don't necessarily need to implement that to pay for the rest of the programs. We could just implement that alone. So if you were to take the entire amount and apply that to contingency, you would be left with a contingency balance of $307,000 for the remaining of the year.
That's just way too low.
I would say, from a professional standpoint, I would say as of October 4th, that is way too low of a contingency balance.
Carly, I don't think we've ever, since I've been on the council, had a contingency that was less than 500,000, correct?
We've never started the year with one that's less than 500,000, no ma'am.
Carly, I did have a question. So you mentioned that something could be taken from their budget already. Did you say that, or did I miss it?
No, these items are already included. Like, so the 251,000 is already included, is taken into account already.
Not their budget, but the overall.
It is included, it's included as an
their budget.
offset to their
Okay,
budget. So
okay.
like they have $800,000 of personnel costs. We then net that 251 already out of that, so that we then say that they have a total cost of like
Okay.
600 and some odd thousand.
So
Does
Carly,
that make sense?
That makes sense.
what if they had, $130,000 paid through available grant administration? Could we not take that, and apply it to the personnel funding?
So if the 130,000 is included in that 251.
No, it's not included.
It's additional from what source?
Available grant administration
From what?
revenue. As I,
Increase the 250.5.
To 100 and, can you do that?
Additional 130.
yep,
We would have to go before the, well,
Could you get that as under your caps? I don't know.
So what would you reduce in your programmatic income? I assume, you correct me, Barry, because you're the master of this. You increased your reimbursements by 130,000. What are you taking away from? Because your money from HUD is fixed, so it's not as if they're going to provide you another.
we're not at every cap on the admin part, because there are other things that we have to take into consideration when they say admin, administration, or carrying out carrying out a grant. So the 130 is really and truly the max that we could actually do on any of our grants that we actually already reimburse the city for.
But today, where would that 130 go?
The 130 will come from all of our grant programs.
Yeah, but where do those dollars are being budgeted and invested now? Because they're not, and help me understand, they're not new dollars, they're 130 programmed in, we've gone through the HUD process.
It's all admin.
So if you take that 130, where are you taking it from to add it?
It'll be all admin.
Right now, you have 251 as programmatic income.
No. As per, the 251 is salary reimbursement from the admin on every grant. Because in each grant, you may get, like, CDBG is 20%, you may get 5% on lead, you may get 10% to 15% on home. So it's the admin portion of each grant.
So those dollars that you're not today scheduling, where are those dollars going?
Out of admin. It's coming out of admin For the,
Carly, can you help me interpret?
I think so, I think that what, sorry,
Carly's.
I think so, because I've worked in this world before, I will tell you that, so you have a total admin cap amount. Let's say just for argument's sake, that total admin cap amount right now is about 500,000. He's saying that 251 of that 500,000 is gonna go towards salary reimbursement. So you have a little bit left over, and a lot of times that will go towards some planning, maybe it's like environmental, documents that have to be filled out by like an outside service, or if there's any office supplies that need to be purchased for administrative work, folders to hand over to people going through like the home buyer program or things of that nature. Those can also come out of that program admin
Gotcha.
bucket.
So,
Does
today,
that help?
that 130, you were not planning to spend on salaries. What were you planning to spend that on?
it's on admin for the administration of the program.
So
Whatever
what would
falls,
that go to?
falls under, whatever falls under
Would it go,
admin.
okay, well,
Salary reimbursement,
I think what I'm
The-
trying to say is that,
Is it accounted for?
are you gonna come back and say, well, we took the 130 for administration, now I need 10,000 for office supplies?
No.
So we just have 130 floating around?
It's off every grant that we have, it's the
I under-
admin part off
I
every grant.
understand that. What I'm trying to say is that if you're only reimbursed, that 130,000 is a lot of money. I'm trying to understand, if you got 130,000 that's out there, and it can be spent in this broad admin category, and you've told us that 251 is going towards salary. Where is that other 30, where are you planning for it to go? Right now, today?
Well, it's in admin right now.
So is it
we
like a
have to
reserve
pay-
right now?
Where is it planning to go?
Well, it's in admin for the administration of, so when we do travel, it comes out of the admin.
Okay, so you do travel.
Yeah, we do travel
So
for
if you
training.
take that 130, can you then travel?
Yes,
Where are you gonna get that money from?
CDBG home, believe me. Over the years, it's accumulated. Admin accumulates.
So how much do you have?
That I have to check.
So could it be?
That'd be an interesting answer, though. I'm looking forward to that.
Is it one
But
of those-
it's only from 19 and 2020. That's it.
So-
It's not a carryover like that, because we have to close out.
I think we probably need, Mr. Chairman, to do a deep dive into federal programs, because if we have 130 out there, I mean, is putting it into personnel the best use? Maybe it's looking at steering it towards Meals on Wheel or temporary
community
emergency
services.
services.
Could
Well,
we do
again,
that?
the
Instead of
agency
directly
funding,
in the personnel
the
salary.
agency funding has a cap on every grant, so.
I think what we need is a good layout, Perry, of all of that, and I'd like it itemized dollar by dollar by dollar.
And another way of saying that, what's in the bucket, right, Walt? What is sitting there?
My theory,
Yeah.
and in fairness to Perry, I haven't had a chance to discuss this with them, is if we apply that 130, then something else has to give. I mean, office supplies or travel or training or what it is, and maybe it's worth to give that, right? I mean, that,
But that hasn't been budgeted for anything yet, right? So
It's an admin.
It's an
it's
ad,
just an
right.
admin.
Can I,
So, but you do need this to strengthen your personnel, I mean, cause that's the main thing, you could use that. The pay increase, the grade upgrade, I mean, just saying. I see.
Go ahead, Mr. Lanier.
I'm trying to, so in the interest, out of courtesy to the admin and policy and the properties, do we want to continue the discussion, or is there a proposal to be put up for a
Chair.
second? Or
Can I just ask this, can we see on the next one, if we're gonna continue the discussion, if that 130 can be used for either one of those agencies?
I'm fine with that, but from Mr. Wilson,
Well, what I would like to
do you want to try to bring this to a head now, or do you want to carry this discussion into next week?
I would like to carry this discussion into next week, but I would also like us to look at how this $705
Yeah.
could be utilized through
Personnel funding.
personnel fund.
But that's coming,
To
don't you
the
think that should go to
Yeah.
them
Yeah,
first?
that's-
Kind of like the projects thing?
Let's
Okay.
let's do that, and then come back and look at what can we do to do this agency funding of $200,000.
This is the one thing I will speak on. No, I would say that the funding for personnel needs to be set before details of personnel are said. If there is no funding set aside for a position, we can't create and then post a position. So I would say that the funding for a position needs to be set first, and
But
then the details of what that
Don't
position would
we,
be.
Carly, Ms. Standers, don't we typically in admin and policy hear the presentation
And
on
those
the
positions are all
rationale? Wait a
funded
minute, please.
already.
On the rationale.
Those positions are funded already. Every position that you will hear on admin and policy today are already funded for, and that financial analysis has already been done to sign off that it even comes to you for consideration.
So let me ask you this, Carly, because apparently the repairmen need these positions for a while. Why can't we find funding for his department as well? Like,
If I
And I think
can help, I don't wanna put our team members in a bias. The process we have on, this is not the normal process for looking at pay adjustments for city employees. We have a very specified process that begins with the department head making a request to HR. HR then goes through a full evaluation of that request. If HR recommends that request, then finance signs off that there's funding available, and then it comes to me. In most cases, those requests then have to come to the city council. And through that process, things such as certainly funding comes into play, but also internal equity. If you move, let's say, someone to a salary of a grade 44, well, you might have 7 department heads that are lower than a 44. Then you set off a chain reaction. That's HR's job to look at. They look at, if we move this technician to this grade, does this set off 55 other technicians then that have to be moved to this grade? And then a financial analysis is done on that. You see the requests that make it to this table. You don't see the dozens that never make it to this table because they don't meet that criteria. You certainly have every right to do that. That has been our process that we have gone through time and time again. So in this particular case, if you decided to make the changes as being requested by Councilor Wilson, you would also have to amend the salary budget because they're not included today
Right.
in the salary budget. So
That's
if you
right.
decide to do it, you just have to amend it.
That's right.
All right, so, again, in the interest of the immediate, are we okay continuing this discussion
next week.
next week?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, so then we'll move
Motion
on.
to table
Huh?
to next week.
Okay, that's fine. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Last item on the finance agenda, was it Cypress Creek discussion, Ms. Standridge?
Yes, sir. The Cypress Creek Phase 1, if you will look in your packet on page 2, you will see a breakdown of that project cost.
69 days.
And you will see that there is a remaining available budget amount of $398,096.16. There has been previous discussion at this table regarding how to, when we find additional pockets of funding through, possibly projects that close out like this, to maybe put it towards neighborhood drainage. So that's kind of what we're coming here to just hear a discussion about. Would you like for us to move in that direction? Would you like for it to go somewhere else? What is the feeling for us to bring a budget revision for this?
Yeah, neighborhood drainage.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye, okay.
If it is amenable to the committee, then we will go straight to council with that budget revision next week, or would you like to see the actual budget revision itself?
If we-
I'm fine with that.
Once that the council adopts that, could you give us an update at an upcoming finance committee of what the balance is unencumbered?
Of neighborhood drainage?
Yes.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And that's the numbers you and I talked about yesterday, right?
That is, yes,
That's the 605 minus, all right, we'll get it.
Okay.
We got down to around 280 to 300,000.
Yes,
In
sir.
reality, is unencumbered for neighborhood
How
drainage.
much was it?
280 to 300, Ms.
So,
Standard?
yeah, so we had there was 800 and some odd in there, 830 maybe, and then 500,000 was that for that CMP lining, so we kind of took that out. So just regular neighborhood drainage project style is about 300,000.
And then we'll be adding, this amount was what, the left?
398.
So there's another 4, so we're back up into $750,000. Is there any other business?
I can ask OCE if that's been
I think there's
put
still
to a
some
project
money
or
sitting in
not,
there,
but I'm not
Mr.
sure.
Chairman, from things we voted on last year, we hadn't spent yet. Academy Drive one of them.
Is there any other business for Finance Committee?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Finances adjourned.